Hello, everybody. This is Leslie Powers here with Derek Bartolicelli and our special guest, Stephanie Forcier. Welcome to Dissolving the Divide. We've got a cool combo today on the tarot. What's up, Derek?
Hey Leslie, how's it going? Stephanie, I'm so glad to have you on, honestly, to learn about you and your work and your path work of just, learning and going through initiations, if you will, Black Earth Productions, I believe, and yeah, understanding certain things about the tarot that a lot of people do not understand and how things have kind of been distorted. The order has been a little shuffled around and as far as ladies first, please, with the high priestess, if you will, and you're centered in between the two pillars of enlightenment. How you feeling today?
Yeah, exactly. That high priestess will do it every time. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for welcoming me on your show. I mean, I am just incredibly honored to be here, and I'm excited to talk about the tarot and my experience with it and all the fun esoteric stuff. So I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Leslie, your mic is muted, actually, but it's all good. Ask away, please.
Trying to do good about muting. I have to remember to unmute. Well, we're really glad to have you, Steph and Stephanie, and we'd love to hear a little bit about you and what brought you into the tarot and what is so compelling about this practice.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll just start by saying I think for a lot of us, I definitely had those deeper, more expansive thoughts and feelings as a child, right? I was questioning everything, constantly driving my parents crazy with asking why on just about everything. And so the knowing I had within myself of, my own intuition and my intuitive abilities was there from the start. But like everyone, we get subjected to the matrix and the programs and the brainwashing and all of that. So I had to kind of claw my way back out of that. And it's been quite a journey of discovery, I would say, from about my early 20s on. And I've been coming back to myself. And the tarot came in about, I'd say, 20 years ago for me. So, you go to the shops, you go to the metaphysical shop, you see a card deck you like. Everybody gets their favorite. I started off with a deck called the Norse Tarot. It was the one that spoke to me, probably because of my lineage, unbeknownst to me at the time.
Ooh, which is you got some Nordic in you, Irish, anything like that?
So definitely without having done the, test, what I know, French and Welsh and on back from there. I'm still researching actually. So but the French part is definite. And that probably is why I'm inclined toward the tarot. There was a lot of the origination of the tarot came from France and Italy and those areas. So yeah, the tarot found me. I played with the cards for a while. I actually ended up getting rid of my first deck, and I don't even know why. It was just at a different time in my life. I stopped playing with it for a bit. And then I came back to it. I got the deck again, my original deck. I had to reorder it special because it wasn't in print anymore. And
Wow.
since then, I purchased the Rider-Waite, which is, the standard deck that you can start with. And I got back into it, but I got back into it a lot more seriously. So at that time in my life, I was having kids. So I was going through a big change and transformation of having my son. And I remember when I was pregnant, just like everything I had always questioned just kind of came up and out of me. And it was like floating in this cloud of energetic plasma, for lack of a better term. And I would just look at things one at a time, you know, kind of like picking fruit off a tree, almost like imagining like being at Yggdrasil and just like a fruit of knowledge and like working with it. And so tarot was one of those fruits. And I got a lot deeper into it. I started allowing the deck to talk to me, to speak to me, to tell me the story, and to see myself in the different cards. And that's probably when I got super duper comfortable doing readings for other people, is because I really opened myself up. I opened my intuition up, and just to the history of the tarot and the meaning and the richness and the depth and the archetypal energy. And that's what really got me going and doing readings for others. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
you mentioned like the depth, right? The history of the cards and the depth. What is important to know about that, do you think?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of data out there about it, about the history. I think what's most important to know, though, if I put one thing at the top of the list, it's to understand that you as an individual can have and develop a personal relationship with the tarot and with the archetypes. It truly is the path of the hero's journey as we walk through the major arcana. And, you know, it can be a very personal experience. And the cards may speak one way in one situation and a different way in another situation. And their relationships together can change, just like life changes and just like we heal and transform. The cards can represent that and show that. And so that would be my top thing about, you know, the tarot, is that you are absolutely allowed to have your own personal relationship with the cards and to take them into study for yourself and work with them in whatever way works best for you. But there is really cool history. I mean, the artistry, the esoterics, in the late 1400s, these cards were, you know, more coveted by wealthy people and people who were in the secret societies and, you know, the churches and religions of the times, you know, utilizing that for their purposes and not really wanting or allowing it to get out to the general public. So when Arthur Waite, because I study mostly the Rider-Waite, so that's what I predominantly use. And Arthur Waite got into, you know, he was an esoteric kind of person, really into things, you know, maybe from what I hear, he was kind of Aleister Crowley's nemesis or whatever. They kind of had a thing, you know, where they didn't agree and they were kind of working through things. But he hired Pamela Coleman Smith. And he's kind of the publisher, right? So he's kind of the publisher. We'll put him kind of to the side, because Pamela Coleman Smith really is who brought the modern day tarot of the Rider-Waite version to life. And she was also the first person to put characters in the minor arcana, whereas before there were only the symbols. So she brought people into the minor arcana, which added a whole layer of complexity. And as the tarot was being used, moved from being used as a game to more for divination and those kinds of purposes and esoteric study, that was really cool. It was really nice to have the person images in those minor arcana cards as well. So there is a really rich history.
Yeah, c'est riche l'histoire du tarot, bien sûr, et le truc de Marseillais, you know, the tarot of Marseille, or whatever they call it. Is that one of the original first ones? And I don't even have that deck and I haven't studied it, but they always show the major arcana with these things, unfortunately. And, you know, the minor gets overlooked a little bit, even though it's just as important in a sense, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But so you're telling me that that deck didn't have any kind of human figures or whatever? It was just kind of symbols?
I would have to research that. You know, I don't have that deck either.
Oh,
that is
shit.
a deck I do not
Oh, no
have.
worries,
I have a long wish list there. So that is something I would have to look up to see if it was in that one. But from my understanding, in the originals, prior to them being used for divination, they just had the symbols, more like playing cards, like the spades, the hearts, the clubs, etc., the diamonds. So, but yeah, the major arcana, that really gives us the journey of the hero, the archetype. And the minor arcana really shows us how those things interact, maybe on a more quicker, short-term base. At least that's how I usually see it in the cards. When there's major arcana energies that come in, the energies usually are more longer lasting and usually more of a theme that you or the individual you're reading for is dealing with in your life. When you get the minor cards, those tend to be really good for parsing through situations and like, okay, here's the tendencies, here's the, maybe some of the specifics that are going on. They help enhance the story. So
do you work with them separately? Do you sometimes separate out the major from the minor and pick,
yeah, so
Yeah.
I do actually, in a lot of my general readings on my YouTube channel, I will start with, and I actually have them separated right now. I have just the major arcana deck here, or a portion of the deck, the 21 cards I have separated out. And I like to use the major for the overall energy of the reading, because then that really does kind of set the theme. I wouldn't say I do that 100% of the time. Sometimes intuitively, I'm called to just mix them all up and go for it. But I really like that, because then I can really feel into how that overall energy is affecting the whole outlook of what's going on. So I do like doing that at times, and then just if I'm intuitively called to do it a different way, I will. But that really, these cards, these major arcana, they serve as a nice anchor, I find, for my readings. So they kind of anchor us into what the theme is. And, sometimes people like that, and sometimes they don't, but these cards are here to teach us, to help us even through, the hardest times and the shadow aspects. So,
Yeah. It's timely, this talk, because right now there's a movie out called Tarot. And it's, kind of like it looks like a horror movie, right? And the synopsis is: friends unwittingly unleash an unspeakable evil trapped within a cursed deck of tarot cards. One by one, they come face to face with fate, racing against death to escape the future foretold in their readings. And what I read too was that there was like a myth that you're not supposed to use another person's deck, and that was the flaw, that put them in danger. And I'm wondering, you shared about the elite sort of holding on to the tarot cards, and then we have like a lot of things in where maybe something sacred and deep like the tarot is trivialized, and made a parlor game or something, stories told about it, so I would love to hear your commentary on that.
Yeah, did they water it down over the centuries? What the hell, right?
yes, exactly. So, yes, I saw the trailer. Of course, it like popped up in my algorithms because of tarot. And I saw that trailer, I guess it was like a month and a half ago, whenever it kind of first came out or whatever. And I thought, and myself and the other readers that I work with, my other tarot colleagues, we were all kind of like, oh boy, this is, like, here we go, trying to angle a story where like the deck itself is like vilified, perhaps. Now, I haven't seen the movie. I probably will watch it for educational purposes to see what they're feeding people about it. But I have yet myself personally to come across a cursed deck in any way, shape, or form. Typically, all the decks I have in my collection, I have bought new, so off the print, off public, have just been published and printed. and shipped. But I think it's really up to the individual, and I think I would encourage each person to trust their own self with using another person's deck. I personally like to clear my cards, whether anyone else has touched them or not, because I'm almost like resetting after each reading. So a lot of the readings I do will be on the 12 signs of the zodiac. If I just did a Taurus reading and it was really intense, I need to clear those energies out, or, whatever it was, so that I can tune into the next sign. So I have a really quick, easy, effective method for doing that. But every reader is different with how they like to handle their cards. But I think the general consensus among the tarot readers is we're like, oh, this is, an attempt to maybe give tarot a bad name, or, the people that are very fundamentalist Christian and things like that, it gives them more ammunition to just say, oh, that's of the devil, that's evil, and, that kind of thing. So Hollywood's going to take it where they will. Hollyweird. They'll take it where they will. But I honestly believe that people that are meant to work with the tarot will find it, and won't have the fear factor built into, just, it's not, once you realize and start questioning things in life, and if you have any bit of curiosity and you allow yourself to go into things, you'll find that like many things, like, this is absolutely open for exploration. And you can absolutely, just like you would need to protect your energy every day, you can protect your energy when you're reading the cards too. It's no different. It really is quite flawless and quite simple, to the point where I never really think about doing a lot of extra protection or anything, because I already have done that for myself personally, and I've set my intention and everything, and that takes care of it. But I've not once, there are some decks I don't care for. I mean, I don't resonate with every deck out there. There are some of them I'm like, this one, the intention of the authors or the way the images look or something, I might not like personally. But I have yet to encounter a cursed object. Not to say they don't exist, but I have not encountered one.
So in general, people need not be afraid of
No.
using the deck or interpreting the information as foreboding evil, bad things in their life, right? Because I think people get very anxious. Some people get anxious about what looks like a negative reading, or what the devil card might mean, or the death card. And I wonder, how do you approach that generally when you do readings?
Yeah, so it would depend. So when I'm doing like the general readings for everyone, like on my YouTube, right? I usually, first of all, I need to feel into the energy myself, because the devil coming up at one point, or the death card there, as Derek has, is not in and of itself necessarily a bad thing. So I'm really looking at the relationship of that card to the other cards around it. But it also, when we're talking about truth, personally, I like the cards on the table. I like all the cards on the table, even the ones that might be representing the shadow or a dark aspect or an addiction or whatever it is. I want to know about it. That's, I want to know. I want to go there. I'm not afraid to go there. And so I will preface things by, okay, and the death card comes up. This doesn't necessarily mean a physical death, but it could. We'll look into things, and then I go deeper. In a personal reading, it really depends what the person's dealing with, what they've asked. I'm always going to present what I get from the card, regardless if it makes sense to me, regardless if it's kind of a message of like, oh, this doesn't look very good. I'm still going to share that with the person, because that's the energy that's coming up out of those cards. But, the death card, for example, that can represent a beautiful transformation, because we go through death and rebirth constantly through our life. So it doesn't necessarily just mean you're going to die or somebody you love is going to die. It can actually mean transformation. And the majority of the time it does. It does mean that. And it's Scorpio energy. So a lot of times I will connect that in to whatever I'm talking about, because that person might have some Scorpio in their chart that they need to take a look at. They could have a placement or a series of placements that's important. They may just need to embody that Scorpio energy of like questioning and going deep and being willing to go into study. So there's a lot of angles these scary cards can, take. Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. Because yeah, a lot of people have this, the whole divination thing and blissed out. On the contrary to the movies that are scary, and whatever the hell in between that might vary. But like
Love
situations getting hairy. I don't know, but
it.
so what the hell? Like, it just seems like you can see the polarized aspects of this. Of like uber like blissed out, whatever, a little too new age, new cage, and then the whole like super skeptic and like, oh, it's like the devil and all this stuff. It kind of how Christianity looks at astrology almost sometimes, and like all these things. And I feel like it's just been put, stigmatized or whatever over time because, yeah, like y'all touched upon earlier, of how certain people in power or whatever, or in the know and yada yada, secret societies that know about these things and understand the hermetic principles that have been embedded in these things and how it pertains to natural law and how it can really help any individual that really studies them and applies them to their lives. And they just kind of throw these things off as, yeah, just a little thing. You can go for $5 to see, your local gypsy, and bada boom, bada bing, you get a little thing. You know, you know what I
Yeah.
mean. So how can we try to like make, resurrect like the true divinity and sacredness of this science and art, if you will, because that's kind of how I see it. It's not just like a divination thing.
Right.
It's a shame that it's been labeled that way, kind of, right?
Right. Right. And that's a great point, because there is so much more to it. And the deeper you go into it, the more you realize that, and the more you realize the practical application to growing yourself in your own life. And you bring up some really great points. And every tarot reader has their own style. Obviously, you can go on YouTube and find all kinds of different, approaches to tarot. um, and I do think it's, again, like balance and temperance, which is a card in the tarot, is important. Since I study cosmic law, natural law, the hermetic principles, the Kabbalah, we go into that study for ourselves. To me, like I'm looking at everything, and I'm finding that when you think of the pendulum swing, I'm looking for that message in the middle, where you're going to get the shadow energies, you're going to get the light energies, you're going to get it all, so you have the full package picture in the readings. Now, this is not to slight any other readers, but you hear, when you start hearing things like dear ones, and a lot of readers will say, well, spirit is saying, well, my question to you who use that word as a tarot reader, who are you talking to? Who are you tuning into? And so one of the things when I went into it publicly, I wanted to make sure people knew what I was tuning into. And so the energy that I like to tune into, I am actually accessing, first of all, my greater being, the greater parts, the greater aspects of me, that are my all within me. And for my general readings, that would be whomever is going to listen to the reading and be open to learning through their greater being. So it's their greater being. It could be aspects that are subconscious, it could be aspects that are conscious, but it gives me more of a holistic and complete approach to the energies, I feel. And so a lot of people will say, oh, that's the higher self. That might be another term. I like to say greater being, because I don't like to put it higher and lower. I like to kind of encapsulate everything. And that's the energy that I'm tuning into. Otherwise, I feel like I have a lot of questions of like, well, where are these messages coming from? Because what spirit, whose spirit, you know, spirit can mean a lot of things. So I'm not saying that's bad. I do think a lot of tarot readers are just tuning in and intuitively. But as a reader personally for myself, I couldn't just say those words, or, you know, if I'm getting a message from spirit, I want to be more specific where it's coming from. Right. I want to know where it's coming from. What voice is that? Where is it coming from? So really my intention is always like my greater being is like opening the door with your greater being, whoever the client or the audience is. And that's where we're going to interact, and we're going to see the energy that's going on there. So yeah, I used to do those fairs, metaphysical fairs, a lot. And people would come and they just want to be told what they want to be told. They didn't want to, they're not there to be like, oh, I better take this home and start working on this. You know, I heaven forbid I have to take action on something. I just want you to tell me that my ex-boyfriend's a piece of shit and, you know, I can move on. Right.
Is it kind of like that new age notion where, you know, like they want that smoke blown up their ass or whatever?
A little
That's
bit.
what
Yeah.
you
And they'll go from table to table until
oh,
they
yeah.
get, you know,
Well,
and you know, honestly, it was a great thing because I made a lot of long-term clients from that. But my long-term
yeah.
clients that have
Awesome.
stuck around are the people that do the work.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the big difference.
Mhm.
And yeah, just real quick, and there is a big difference between what you go by in your protocol and approach to these things. And yeah, I really like you know, one of I think it's in like the first 20 videos of your YouTube channel where you explain these things like, hey, this is how I do the reading and the tarot and how I set up. And you know, it's really cool as an intuitive yourself, probably an empath and all these things. Like you need to set up like that time and space to really, you know, and I love that of you having that intention and action towards, you know, setting up that specific encounter with whoever. So you're really taking it really, really seriously. I really appreciate that. And you're calling upon like, yeah, like your soul source, if you will, you know, your greater self, higher self. People want to use that, and if they resonate with that more, and it's not, you know, you're not, you know, calling upon, you know, you're not channeling energies from, you know, other people, because we're in the midst of a whole bunch of, you know, imposters and things
Mhm.
like that in the upper astral parasitical realm of things and all that jazz, you know, that, but not to get into that, but, you know, going back to, yeah, and it's great for you to garner long time clients, especially when you met them in person, just, you know, being out in your local environment. That's what we need to see more of. And I love hearing these things. So yeah, good on you, Stephanie, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's that we're here in the earth realm doing the work. So those of us who've been through initiation, Black Earth Productions, you know, we've heard, we're here to do the work. We're here on the earthly plane. So when I'm tuning into these energies, this is the work that needs doing here on the physical plane. You know, we're not blissing out on some, you know, 22D level or something. No, we're going to get information that actually helps us. And that's what the tarot is really good at too. It has that whole suit of pentacles in there that are all about practical world that will ground you in, that can help you move through things. So yes, there's the spiritual aspects, of course, and we're bringing those in, but we are moving through, as Rodney would say, the heart core essence, the heart core, and we're moving. That's where we're coming from. That's what we want to look at, because that's where we can actually get the work done.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment a little bit about the way that, you know, tarot has been used as an entertainment in a way, or as an oversimplified way of telling people what to do, or help making them think that they know what's going to happen, right? And there's some distortions there. And at the same time, in terms of the entertainment, there is, like you said, lots of people online doing cards, and everyone has their own style. And, you know, you have a certain playfulness in how you do it. And so, yeah, how can people, again, like, you know, sort out what to look for?
Yeah. Yeah. So most of us as tarot readers know, like when you go and you categorize your channel, it's categorized under entertainment, right? And that's just kind of the world we live in. You can categorize it under education, though. I think that would be better. Education and esoteric studies would probably be not an option to select that, but that would probably be the better part of it. And so, yeah, I like to have fun with it because I know that some people's comfort level might need a little bit of something where they can relax a little bit more. So you might have seen for, I think it was like my May monthlies, I had the Princess Leia wig and I did the theme and just doing some fun things, bringing, some flowers in once in a while. I like to keep it pretty simple, as you can see behind me. This is just my wall behind me, right? But just actually bringing in some fun elements from time to time. It kind of helps people not feel so nervous about what am I going to hear, and as far as the predictions go, yeah, I'm kind of, I don't like to focus on that too much because I think it was Yoda, Master Yoda, who said, the future is always in motion, right? And so when you're looking at future energies, those can change at the drop of a dime, I mean, it could just change tomorrow. So they're really just potentialities that you're looking at, and explaining that to people, I think, is really helpful. And the way you set up your readings, is really helpful. I have offered, and I do still, when people request it, I do like a 12-month outlook. But again, I'm looking at themes. I'm not looking at like specifically this month, this is going to happen. Sometimes there are those strong potentials that will come through, but I like, and this might go into a free will conversation, but my approach is that, do we have free will? Yes and no. I kind of am in the middle on that. And so a decision that a person might make could change the energies for the future, right? And that's kind of cool because, and that's why my channel is called Creators on the Crest, because my position in this, in the line of us that is doing this work, my position is to help usher people into their creativity and moving away from the reactivity that comes from the programming and everything. But to do that, you have to be in the present moment. When you're creating, you're in the present moment. You're alchemizing as you go. So when it comes to future casting, and I kind of steer clear of that for the most part, because my interest and my position is helping people look at what's going on right now, and then what needs to be done about that, right? What actions can we take? What field of study do we need to go into? How can we go deeper into this so that we can evolve ourselves?
Yeah, I can see that, and especially over time, there's so many variables involved to project something from here, from the next couple months, even just a month from now, that kind of stuff. But have you noticed, like going on that? Have you noticed people just they're looking to have those immediate results as well, type of thing? Kind of how we've been conditioned to have, just
Yeah,
take the
yeah,
easy pill and this and that, and kind of like what you were talking about at the fair when people just want to like
yeah,
hear what they
yeah.
the feel goods, whatever.
It really depends on the person, honestly. Like, and that's why
That's
I
good. I don't
started.
like to generalize. That's great
Yeah,
though. Yeah.
yeah, it honestly does. I mean, at the fairs, you're more likely to encounter the people who want to hear what they want to hear. They want the quick fix, the quick response. They're going to hone in on the one thing that they like that you said. And if that doesn't happen, whatever, it's going to be a thing, or you're not a good reader or whatever. However, like the clients that end up gravitating to me or magnetizing to me because of the work that I've done, I would get a little uncomfortable working with a client who in their life, if they just kept coming to me for readings, but they're not making any progress, like that is a relationship that I would call attention to that. And I would say, okay, hey, I may not be the reader for you, or, something's not matching up here. But what I actually 99.9% of the time find is that I do have clients that come periodically, but they will listen to the reading. And even if what was said, it's just not landing in them right now, they get the recording, so they have it. And then they have maybe another reading down the road. Maybe they had 4 readings in a year. They will go back and put the puzzle pieces together. And sometimes something that came in at a particular time, they weren't ready for that, or they just weren't in the right vibrational frequency to hear that part of the message. But if they go back or they take notes, they're like, okay, I'll just note that down and for now, and I'll come back to it. They always end up putting the puzzle pieces together. And sometimes that's how the energy comes through, because in a person's energy, sometimes one thing has to be cleared before this piece of information can come in. Right? So if I'm going to go deeper into, let's say, my relationship to the Abrahamic religions and all of that stuff. Well, my father was a minister. I got to do some level of healing here because I'm already triggered out by all, so certain little strands have to be unwound first. So if you are going for readings, I would keep that in mind. Go to a reader you resonate with, first of all, someone that, speaking your language, so to speak, so you can have a rapport with them and a comfortability and like a safety. But then, be open to hearing a message, even if it doesn't make sense in the moment. Be open to come rounding back to it because it may make sense later on after certain things have happened. So that's what I find with my clients, which I'm always so impressed when they do that. They'll come back and tell me, oh, you remember in February, 2022 when you gave me that? And I'll be like, no, I don't remember. But they remember. And there was something very important that, throughout the course of their year came about and ended up being very helpful to them in the long run. They're like, oh, that's what it was. And they make the connection.
Damn, yeah. Because real quick, I'm sure Leslie want to ask something or add on to this, but just with the cards and everything, like your body, your vessel, you have to cleanse that, periodically, on a daily basis, just because all the interactions you've had and what you've exhausted your attention and soul towards this one reading, how many readings you have per day and all that stuff. So yeah, I feel you.
Yeah. Yep. And for that, I use the circle of the magician, which, if you studied with Black Earth Productions or the Wizard Factory guys, you would know, what the circle of the magician is, which I won't go into right now. But for me, that has been the most powerful, reliable, protective tool that I could possibly use for keeping my energies clear.
So a couple questions going through my head.
Get him, Leslie.
Yeah, and I think I lost the one that was most literally connected with what you were saying. But so when you're laying out your what is it called? You'll lay out like a Celtic cross, or you'll lay out different things. How do you sort of choose those things, and what are the kind of options and approaches to that?
Yeah. So just starting out, I think, researching some spreads online, or a lot of the tarot books come with recommended spreads. You can do that and test those out. Like certain authors for their cards might recommend certain types of spreads. And I think that's a great way to learn. I approach it very intuitively. However, I love the Celtic cross. I think it's reliable. I think I like the dynamics of how you can flow through the Celtic cross spread. Anybody who has past life with that would, I think, resonate with that spread. But there's also, you can do very simple spreads as well. It doesn't have to be complicated. And when you're just starting out, I remember just doing 3 cards, a kind of the passing energies, the current energies, and where they're going, right? So kind of like the before and after, and you're kind of looking. It can flow really, really simple like that sometimes. It just depends on how long you have and how deep you want to go into things. But for my channel, actually, I knew I wanted to look at, when I'm looking at the signs, I wanted to look at the signs energy. So if I'm doing Sagittarius, I'm looking at Sagittarian. I have my Sagittarian, and then I have the energy that is connected to them. And this would be whatever predominant energy is showing up in their greater being, in their energetic field, right? That could be a person, could be, any kind of relationship, romantic, family, whatever, friend. And then I like to look at how those energies are dancing in the middle. I always say dancing and mingling in the middle, because I want to see how they're interacting, and I want to see the effect that the two energies are having on one another. And that's just something I came up with. I've watched other readers. I see what they do. Some do past, present, future type things, but I knew I wanted to do more of a relationship, like a relational type of reading. And so, I just do 3 cards for the sign that I'm reading, 3 cards for the energy connected to them and how those are connected in the middle. I pull 2 cards. And of course, I have the overall energy. And then I do clarifiers on that to go deeper into things. Now, the deepest I can go would be in a personal reading, right? Because then I'm really tuned in with that specific person's energy, and we spend more time than I would in a general reading. And when you're doing the general reading, you've kind of opened the door to multiple people's greater beings that are like talking to you. So, a lot of times there is a theme, though. Like Sagittarians might be dealing with something in relationships that's very similar to one another. They might have that. So you end up kind of getting the loudest of the energies that are coming through when you're tuning in. But you can also create your own spread. You don't have to do one that's already been created. You could
can be
make up your
creative.
own. Yeah.
So you're bringing up how you work with both like the astrology and the tarot. So what do you see as the interconnectedness of those 2 things, and even the Kabbalah or any other esoteric kind of
Yeah, because
study?
I was gonna say, like your average person that's just understanding tarot, they're gonna be like, "Whoa!" Like understanding tarot, it's like, "Whoa!" I have to learn astrology and Kabbalah and all these things to really get a grasp on this thing. Like, what the hell? Like, I thought it's just some cards, What the like?
Yeah.
They're not as flimsy as y'all might think, but yeah, break
Yeah.
it down for us, Stephanie. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So, wow, we're talking about arts and sciences, and just like in a traditional college where you have the College of Arts and Sciences, it's like all these things, right? And in the esoteric arts and sciences, we have all these fields of study, and they're all very in depth, right? Or they can be if you want to take it there. And so to me, both astrology and tarot, and if you read palms, if whatever it is, I think these are lifelong studies that evolve with us as we're actually using the tools. They evolve. And same with energy work and things like that. Reiki is very popular energy work, but there are other forms, and these things evolve with humanity as humanity evolves. So yes, it can be a little intimidating to maybe take it from the place of astrology, where you're like, now I got to learn all 12 signs and what their energies are, and how that might factor into the reading, because it's a lifelong study. It truly is.
So daunting, right? But
Yeah. And I probably started astrology around the same time that I did tarot. And that was helpful for me because they do dovetail really nicely. And people love learning about themselves. If they're going to learn something, they want to know, they're kind of like, oh, that's me. I have these characteristics, right? People love that. Who doesn't want to? I mean, maybe some people don't want to know about themselves, but I love knowing, the ins and outs of myself. And I know a lot of people are curious about that. And that's where the astrology can really come in and be helpful. So while it's not my main thing, and I would consider myself, I know enough to be dangerous. I've worked with people like Rodney, and I'm learning, and I tune in and I will listen frequently. Like every week I'm listening to astrology forecasts and just kind of usually I'm already feeling what they're talking about. I'm already tuned in intuitively to it. So there is that element of intuition that I always allow for. But, I would say if you don't want to work with the signs, you don't have to. There's a lot of ways you could do a reading, right? You don't have to know a person's sun sign to give them a reading. For me, it helps because then I can see more clearly where their energies might show up in the cards versus it being somebody else's energy. So it does help. And a lot of people, they know their sun sign. They can tell you, oh yeah, I'm a Taurus. I'm an Aries, I know what I am. But yeah, it does add a layer of complexity. And I would say if it's not your vibe, it's not your vibe. You don't have to bring the astrology along with it. You can read for a situation. You could do like a career reading, and you could do a, financial reading. You could do a, health and wellness reading, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be sign specific. I think it works good for a YouTube channel though.
Yeah, but honestly, it adds so much more value and depth to anyone's reading, whether they understand astrology or not. I feel, and it's going to hit them. And yeah, as you mentioned, even if hindsight ain't no 2020, they're still going to retrospect and gather some goodness from those seeds that were planted or whatever, right? So,
Yeah.
Leslie,
Yeah.
do you have something on that, or Stephanie?
Well, I just wanted to highlight, that there's this esoteric, exoteric aspect to the tarot, and there's also seems to be built into the suits themselves, both an external kind of pentacle, kind of earth-based aspect, but this is really about a deep introspection too.
Mhm.
So, where people can learn the inner depths of themselves, as well as maybe how one interacts with the outer forces. So I just share a little more about the depth of that.
Sure. And if, I'll kind of I'm going to dovetail a couple of these things together, but I love your question here. So, yes, I talked about the suits. We have pentacles, and this is earth. So it kind of goes along with like earth signs, right? We've got our cups that represent water and emotions, right? Water signs. We've got our wands, which are fire. And we've got our swords, which are air. So we do have those lovely elements that we can blend in that are spoken through the different suits. But you mentioned the introspection, which is really, really cool because we have a major arcana card. Well, we have a couple of them, but the one I really, really like for getting to know yourself deeper is the Hermit card. And it's one of the ones. I mean, the High Priestess is amazing, and we can talk about her too. But when you actually are looking at this card, the Hermit is stepping forward on the path without knowing, what could be revealed, what dangers lie ahead. And he's holding the light of his own light. This is his own light that he's holding. And he's willing to move forward from that place of inner knowing. And I would call him probably the master magician of the tarot. So we have a magician card, yes, but it's earlier in the deck. So when we get to number 9 here, the Hermit, this is where the introspection and the analysis, it's been done. The integration has been done. And this is where someone, even though oftentimes when we read this, we read it as like, oh, there could be solitude or, isolation. You're by yourself. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi energy, right? You're like hiding away, but you're actually moving, and you're moving forward with what you've integrated and your own particular light. So you were mentioning that introspection. The tarot takes us into those layers of it within ourselves, So the High Priestess, though, let's bring her out just to get a visual here. Yeah, so she guards the gate. She's the portal keeper. She's the one that will allow or not allow you to continue through the process. And it's very interesting that the magician comes first, right after the fool. So we have the fool that starts us out. This is like, okay, here I am. I'm nescient. I don't know what's going on. I'm going for it, like this is the journey. We start our journey. Beautiful card, taking a risk. And then here we are all of a sudden with the magician. And the magician has all of the suits here on the table at their disposal. But they got the
all the
wand
elements and all
ether.
that. Yeah. Wand of ether and all that. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So this is kind of like, oh yeah, I'm in it. I'm excited. You see this energy a lot with people who have had like an awakening really fast or like a Kundalini experience. All of a sudden they're like, holy crap, like I'm in this energy. And honestly, they don't know what to do yet. Remember, they just jumped off the cliff. And so the high priestess is really nice. I mean, some people would argue she should come before the magician, right? Take yourself into study. But what she acts as and how I often see her is she's the gatekeeper. So if you are getting in this magic stuff and you get carried away, because we know there's nets, traps, snares, all kinds of stuff to throw us off course, right? To take us away from our hardcore essence, our greater being. She will be like, nope, you can't get through to the next layer, to the next level until you correct this, until you're wielding your magic appropriately. So she's the guardian. She's the guardian of that, because behind her, where we're entering to next, is the Empress, and she sits in the Garden of Eden, which is the womb. That's sacred. That's sacred. So this is, I get chills even talking about it. I've said this lots of times, and I still get chills to this day, how important this process is.
Damn, yeah. And so, and the Empress, she's the fourth card. And right?
Technically the fourth card, but labeled number 3 because we have the 0 for the
exactly, yeah. But thinking about the in numerology, 4 represents the foundation, structure, and this and that, like sacred womb type of energy. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So yep, and and then on it goes, on it goes through, and we could go in, you could go into depth on any of these, but that's the point. That's why it's more of a lifelong study, because you can take it through and you can see these cards working in your life at different times in different ways, right? As we cycle and as we evolve and as we gain more knowledge and wisdom and we take appropriate action, that's when we gain through this major arcana.
And isn't that like the main thing, is just to do right in this reality? Like we ain't trying to accumulate karmic debt, right? So best to act right, live light as a feather. You don't want to get, chomped up by the, Anubis's pet, word the feather of my yachts, keeping that shit, your heart lighter than that, right?
Absolutely.
Kind of speaking in hymns, but you follow, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
I haven't got it right here. Look at that top right. But
yeah. Nice. There it is. And, and that's part of the history when you study the tarot, is that they believe when Pamela Coleman Smith, translated it into the pictures that we see here, there we do have an Egyptian influence as well. Kemet. We have some ancient influences going on. But yeah, you mentioned the right action. This is the Justice card. And she holds the scales of Libra. This is often connected to Libra, but we see the sword here. And this is the sword of truth. This is the sword that cuts through the bullshit. Yeah.
The only sword that can cut through that darn old Gordian knot, eh? You know that one?
Yeah.
So there is an order,
Good,
it
yeah,
seems, right? An order of evolution, personal growth in these cards. And I tell us more about that.
Yeah. So, and this would be my recommendation for people who are just starting out their study, is to really spend time with one card, And you don't have to start at 0 if you don't want to. It's kind of helpful because you can see how, the archetypal patterns unfold. But when you take time to work with one card, even it's just like, okay, I'm going to pick one card for the week. I'm going to work with it. I'm going to get more intimate with its energies. I'm going to look at the symbolism. I'm going to study it. So you kind of bring that left and right brain and your intuition together, and you work with those energies. It's absolutely life-changing. That's what I have done in my whole history with the tarot, is spent time with each of the cards. Some of them I'm a lot more comfortable with, and with my blueprint, my astrological blueprint, certain things like, oh, I like gravitate to that one, and that one represents me a lot of the time or whatever. And others of them I'm like, ooh, that's where I got to go, where it gets tricky. I feel the energy of the cards and I'm like, okay, there's something there that's part of my life lessons to learn, So sometimes when you're working with a card, you're like, man, can I pick another one? I don't want this one. This one's hard, but so are lessons of life, and growth is hard and it can be painful. And so these cards, what's nice is you have a visual, you have something to go on, you have the symbolism to go on. So you can, again, journal about it or start piecing together how it's speaking to you, and what you're meant to know from the cards.
Do you see a story or a general theme going from, like in the major arcana, from starting from the Fool to the end, and what is that story, I guess?
Oh, wow. That's an excellent question of how to encapsulate the story. Honestly, I feel that it's the story of our evolution as humans, as humanity. And especially as it pertains to this world and this earthly experience. So you typically are looking at the beginning and you're starting off with no information. You're like, okay, here I go. I'm taking the risk. And then along the way, you're making missteps, you're making mistakes, but you're gaining knowledge, you're gaining wisdom from having learned. You are moving yourself through the Hermetic principles, through the laws of alchemy. As you go, those things will come in, which, Derek has that amazing reel that he did that lays it all out. It's got great music. I loved that. That was one of my favorite things I've seen lately. So,
wow, thank you.
yeah, you find in this movement, and I'm just looking at the major arcana here, you're finding moments of pause and introspection, and where you are going into solitude and you're figuring things out. And then you're also seeing times where you're more interactive. So you're more, in the public eye, or you're more interacting in your relationships. And so I think I would say it's the story of the evolution of humanity, and particularly as it pertains to understanding and embodying truth.
And having the courage to do so, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. And but how many people have actually heard the true call to those notions? I mean, I love how you just beautifully just stated that. That's really great. Leslie, anything?
Well, I'm tempted to ask you to go through more cards, along the way, because we all enjoy that, or possibly doing a reading for us.
Yeah. Would we like a reading? That would be cool.
But before we do that, well, do we want to end on that or what?
We could end on that. However, yeah, you guys decide.
Because I don't know. I wanted to kind of get into some of the things that while we're still sifting through some of the things that aren't necessarily congruent with main or mainstream ways of looking at this, more like the exoteric way of looking at tarot as opposed to the esoteric way, and how just through your vocabulary and all these things that you kind of laid out, that was beautiful. Applying all these things, and one of those sciences, if you will, that is being applied to, and it corresponds wonderfully, right? And there's been folks like Mark Passio that have done, podcast presentations about these things in regards to Kabbalah.
Hmm.
Yet, we do understand there are distortions in that science, and even in their, tree of life, if you will. Already Da'at is kind of hidden and this and that, which raises questions. But it's not a symmetrical tree and all these things, and there might be missing nodes to it, and yada yada, as opposed to Yggdrasil or the Cathara grid tree of life and all those things. So,
Yeah.
what have you seen any kind of discord in regards to that amongst tarot readers and all this stuff? Because like these are the questions I wanted to ask, like throughout the whole spectrum of any kind of tarot readers or clients of that. Have you noticed yeah, just arguments, infighting, all those things? And when people get deeper into these things and realize like, oh shit, like Kabbalah ain't all it's all cracked up to be, even though there are some great teachings in it, right? How can we kind of just lay out all the, you're kind of weeding out the inconsistencies, and then trying to do it together. It's not always easy
Yeah.
because we're not all on the same page, I guess, right?
Right. Right. And I think at times we do have to allow ourselves, all of us, a bit of grace. And if we can allow ourselves a bit of grace with all this, we can usually allow others a bit of grace with it too. Um, yeah, it's really tricky because there is such a sophisticated, trap system set up, and with all of the nets, traps, and snares I mentioned, and how these have been going on for a while. I mean, humanity just wasn't, enslaved overnight. I mean, it's been an ongoing process. So that means even in the tarot, there could be some elements of something that, isn't quite right. So giving ourselves grace as we're going through the learning process, right? And being willing to um, change our mind after we apply the trivium and the quadrivium and we do our critical thinking about things, and we go deeper into it and go deeper into those aspects, being willing to say, oh, hey, I was wrong, maybe I was wrong about that. And I feel that, like, when it comes to the different arts and sciences, there's not one that's like better than all the others. They actually work together. And so I feel like we have to, once we understand, okay, I don't know everything, there's so much to learn, I'm just going to go through it, as I'm called, I'm going to apply critical thinking, I'm going to go through this. We have to be like surgeons, where we're extracting out the wisdom and the essence, and really able to better see why certain things cling to the psyche. And that's tricky. It is like mental surgery, right? To really go in and be able to pull out, okay, this is the essence of it, because you don't necessarily want to throw away everything just because there was like one bit of, dirt, just throw away a plate because there's some dirt on it. No, you can wash it. You can make it, clean again, and you can figure out, and you can also leave behind the parts that don't work. And so that's the principle and the value system that I use, is just to give myself grace, know that there's going to be times where I might go along with something and then later I'm like, uh-oh, that was a total psyop or whatever, right? And having to come back and reset myself and being willing to say, I feel I was wrong about that, and here's why, because I've now gained this additional knowledge and wisdom. And when I look at it more holistically, I really take a look at the whole forest through the trees. As we evolve in our consciousness, the energies are going to change. And so even tarot and even the arts and sciences that we know now, at some point will be outdated and obsolete, right? So they grow with us as we're growing and evolving. And they have the wonderful ability to mirror back to us the energies that we're going through. So that's why the study is so important. But I also think, we have to be willing to say, hey, I was wrong about this. And what I like about your podcast is because the intention is to have the conversations. So you also have to be willing to come to the table, come to the round table, and let's have a discussion, and we might not agree at first, and we might have to sort through some of these things. And that's okay, because, it's not a one size fits all universe, right? It's not. So we're all going to have different angles and different aspects. And so the willingness to come in and, with the intention of, yeah, let's see where we overlap. Let's see where we can connect. Okay. That person, they might be working on that aspect of it. I'm working on this aspect of it. And coming with that humility, I guess, or coming with that sense of being, that it's okay to make mistakes, that you're not, necessarily a failure because you got hooked into a psyop. You have to keep putting yourself through the transformational process, though. You have to keep burning that crap out with the laws of alchemy. And that's, as long as you're sticking with that moving forward, I think we're going to all find our way through. A lot of people aren't there, though. That's the tough part. A lot of people just, okay, just show me the cards, whatever. Just tell me.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's where it gets a little tough with the overall energies that we're navigating through. Sometimes it's like trying to walk through mud, it's like really slow and really hard.
I think people are looking often for answers to be given to them from the outside. And really the process of discovery is through the discovering from inside. Mm-hmm. A lot of, the discovery process is internal. And so when we're looking at, some of these nets, traps, and snares, people get very confused because they're looking for answers mm-hmm. from a guide that's outside of themselves and haven't learned the trust or, the process of discovering or feeling truth from within. So it's an interesting balance of, and, like the trivium is very much about looking at things on the outside, but there's also the process of matching that up to our own inner intuition and, intelligence and knowing our blocks within us, mm-hmm. right? That get in the way and distort our thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've been wanting to show this card, the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man will come in, and this is, a lot of readers read this as a stuck energy. And at times it might be. I read it as this is you're sacrificing yourself unto yourself, unto your heart core essence, and you're allowing that illumination and that integration. Yes. Look at the beautiful glow in that one. Yeah.
Because I got the Radiance deck, right? Yeah.
That is a Radiant deck.
But would you concur that this is like the Odin card?
It is.
Boom.
Yeah.
And this is like Yggdrasil. Do you see the image on the top right that I put up on the logo thing?
Yes. Do
you see the grid and how it lines up like pretty beautifully?
It lines up with that tree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have Irminsul. Mm-hmm. Yep. This is absolutely Odin sacrificing himself unto himself.
Ain't that a new perspective? Huh?
New perspective. This is the card of like, hey, maybe I messed up. Let me take this. Let me really get back to myself. Maybe I did look outside myself and oops, I got to come back inside and see what's really going on there and parse through it.
And say more on that card. Is it a bit of like becoming more, humble and turning things upside down, perhaps considering opposing beliefs, admitting wrong,
Yeah, I read it as, I know it's upside down, but I also read it as like an inside out kind of feeling. Or, when we talk about the correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. This is the coming back within so that you can operate in external of yourself. But really this This is a card of, it is a card of knowledge and wisdom. It's a card of also knowing when it hasn't been integrated and knowing when to pause yourself and take a step back. This is the card of, hey, don't go talk about the things you know. Don't go talking about things you don't know, because you'll be sent back here again, and to study and to integrate more. And there's, I like even the colors that they're using here, because I feel that they do put us in a different perspective. When the red, I always think of like rooted to the earth, and the blue is more of the spiritual, mystical. We see the blue in the High Priestess card, a lot of blue in that. And so we're going to put ourselves in maybe an uncomfortable position to fill ourselves back up with the proper knowledge and wisdom.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. What always comes to my mind is that, the red and the blue, kind of like the aspects of the brain, right? The right and left hemispheres. But then, at the bottom, there's like that golden thought, because, you're just suspending yourself. You're taking kind of like a leap of faith and having some style with it, and with being vulnerable and being comfortable with it. Because, he's just like dangling off there with one foot. You just see the imagery and all this stuff. And so, yeah, like you said, people can, just post something, up next to something in your eyesight, and for a week, and think about that, and like Google it or whatever. Don't be frugal with it. So, it's like these could be some of the best friends you might have ever had in your life. And for those that are kind of lonely and this and that, hey.
Yeah.
With all these
And
things.
we see
It ain't no
that.
Dungeons and Dragons bullshit, whatever.
There's something there too. I'm looking at that hangman, and I'm thinking about the yoga pose, which is called the tree pose, where you lift up the leg, and it's like he's hanging from a tree, and he is the tree at the same time. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
So cool.
This
And going down into the roots, maybe. Of it.
Yes. Yes.
Ooh, I like that. That brings me to one of the biggest questions of the night. It's one of the most divisive things regarding the tarot, right? Regarding the readings and all this stuff.
Okay.
Because you have the uprights and the reversal. Oh, and a lot of people. Yeah, kind of anticlimactic little joke, but so. What's the deal? Because, a lot of people can be thrown off like, oh, no, the card is in reverse and this and that. And again, it's like those shadow aspects are things that, we need to see to, allow that self-improvement aspect to come into our lives, or awareness, if you will, so we can actually work on it and flip the script in a sense, right?
Absolutely.
How does that roll, with you?
Yes. So my personal preference is that I actually, when I'm doing the general readings and I'm on my channel doing that, I do not read in reverse during that time, because just for, just for ease of recording and everything like that. For me, I trust that my intuition will tell me if a card is presented and the reversed energies are coming out, or maybe the shadow aspects of that card are coming out. I'm going to know that, whether the card is upside down or not. But I have read, and sometimes depending on the type of reading, I do like to mix up the deck, and then whatever comes out of it comes out in reverse. It really is just another way of looking at the energies. It's another way of seeing how we can work with these energies in multiple ways. Now, some of them in reverse, it's actually a good thing. Some of the, if you've got like you're having a lot of confusion or something like that, and you're with the Two of Swords, if that comes up in reverse, it can represent that a clarification is on the way, or something is being clarified in your life, something that you've been wondering about and not having the answer is upon you. It can mean those kinds of things. So it's not something to get necessarily worried about if a card comes out in reverse, because it can also mean a good thing. It always depends on what's going on around the card, though. Yeah, but good point, because a lot of readers are particular about whether they read in reverse or not. I like both.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah, that makes me think of another question that I was thinking about and completely forgot. But as far as like, because there's going to be a little reading packet for people. Do you find these accurate? Those little guides. I mean, it's a little booklet. There's only like a sentence or three for every little card, whether it be upright or reversal. And there's countless books on the tarot. And I'm curious, what have you come across that you read and you're like, oh no, these people got it not in the right way or whatever. They're kind of
Yeah.
blowing smoke or whatever. Does that happen often, or what?
Yeah, well, so I don't with the tarot, I don't normally go to those little books. Sometimes I like to though, like out of curiosity. I want to see what they put. Like I go with more of my intuition when I'm reading, as to, of course I know the meanings of the cards. Of course I've studied them. But yes, sometimes I go wander into the little book and I check it out, and I check out what they say. And when you're looking at, let's say, the traditional Rider Waite, you got to remember some of the language. It's like Old English. You'll read it sometimes and you're like, I don't even know what that means. Like I'm not even sure what they're talking about here. But you can look it up. You can go deeper and look it up and find out. But I do find it helpful at times. But there are a lot of decks that I just kind of put that book to the side. I just, because you're under with any variation on the Rider Waite that's not, one of the traditional, one of the what I would call the core decks, they tend to get a little more influenced by the author and the artist who are creating the deck. So you might have more of a human influence on some of those. And of course, we have a human influence on all of them, but I mean more of a, their opinion rather than necessarily you don't know of how deep they've gone into the field of study, because anybody can create a pretty tarot deck, but how deep do they go into it? So some of the authors, I will say, do a really nice job of speaking. Like they'll have a little preface where they say, this is my interpretation of the cards, please go into your own, and I always like that because I feel like that sets it up, and if I were to create a deck, which I want to one day, I will definitely set it up like you have to make up your own mind, research this on your own, go get a lot of different inputs here. Don't just take my word for it, right? Go in a little bit deeper to things. And I like that invitation because it invites in the critical thinking, and it invites in also the allowance of, hey, we are evolving. So these cards might have been created in the late 1400s, but here we are, it's 2024, and we might need to put some different language to it. So yeah, the books can be helpful though. When you're starting out, they're like a little quick reference guide. And there might be some certain keywords that are helpful to you, but as a reader who's been doing this for a while, I don't look at those too much anymore.
Yeah.
So how might you compare and contrast the tarot from just oracles readings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now the oracle, when I do oracle cards, I will use their books because not always, but a lot of times and I try to choose the ones that I really like, how they write and how the eloquence of what they're saying. Oracle, I would say it's more like interpretive dance. It kind of has its own flow. You're getting, again, they can be good for overall energy sometimes. So like there are times where I might set the major arcana aside and I get called to one of my oracle decks and I use those for the overall energies. I have a cool one that does like the sacred geometry of relationships. It's really good. It has some good cards in there that I really like that one. I like the imagery. So they're a whole different though. They're like, yeah, they're the interpretive dancers of, the cards, and each oracle deck has its own meaning, its own depictions, and you can sometimes see elements of tarot in oracle decks. It's pretty cool. You can tell when somebody has studied tarot and they want to do an oracle deck. And some people are just, they know tarot, and then maybe they're into like flowers or something, and so they create a deck like, and there's a flower representing, you know, these different aspects, and it can be really cool how people put the energies together. But yeah, they're more, I'd say, yeah, they're more imaginative. They're more, not necessarily, you don't always have like the archetypal story in the oracle decks. You have more of like, it could be any kind of energy, but usually they'll have a theme to them. And so, you
But
know,
not necessarily these like age-old esoteric truths, these
right,
seeds that the tarot has.
right,
It's sort of
right.
beyond, I think, sort of magical in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of a magical
Mhm.
element, and kind of like, I like them to practice like just tuning into your intuition. Like oracle decks
Mhm.
are kind of nice for that. Like maybe don't look at their book and just look at the card and see what you get out of it, and then go read what they're interpreting. You know, you can kind of practice with them like that, which is really nice. But yeah, they bring in something different, but complementary at the same time.
That's cool. I
Yeah.
was thinking to myself, and I was about to look it up on my computer, but you know, I have so many books I've, in my digital library, and across the Hermetica, I believe I have at least one book written by, jeez, I don't even know his full name, but you know, Waite,
Mhm.
Rider Waite, and I'm sure, and I think I do have a book where he writes about his book, and it's really interesting and a good thing for people to keep in mind that, you know, there could be a specific or certain bias to whatever degree from the author of whatever deck that they're working with. Yeah, no doubt.
Mhm.
For sure.
Yeah.
And for people like getting into this, like, yeah, like you might just go to a fair and be peer pressured by your friends, like, hey, go, you know, get your tarot read or whatever. Like, I don't know this stuff. Like, and then they, you know, like, and this might be after they watch that, you know, stupid movie. Like,
Yes, a scary movie.
that's
Definitely.
not going to be good business for y'all. So what the hell, right? Like,
I mean, maybe it'll have a good effect because people like suspense and curiosity and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know. It
I
kind
hope
of
so.
like, yeah, I'm not sure. We'll find out.
Yeah. So my question
How,
is real quick. Are you familiar with any other literature that Waits has written about?
So I have just started going deeper
Just right now,
into
yeah.
Arthur Waite's book on the Rider Waite. And I think he and Ryder didn't always get along. You know, Waite is more of the esoteric person in the whole, you know, thing. Pamela Coleman Smith's the artist, Waite is the esoteric studies, and Ryder is like the publisher or whatever, the person that had the resources to get it all published, right? And so he uses very rich language that I have to parse through kind of slowly. But I would, yeah, if you're working with the Rider Waite, I do think it's important to read his interpretation of it. He's very thorough, and he's very mindful of everything that he's saying that's going into why, you know, the esoteric study of these cards is so important. And he goes in a lot to the value of that, not so much the like entertainment aspect, but the actual value of working through it for growth and self-development in his own words, you know, which are very rich, and I do have to work through them a little slower because he has that language, that style of speaking.
yeah.
Mhm.
Do you know where the typical common deck of cards was that based off of the tarot in some way?
I, you know, I think they might have been around before the tarot, and probably did have an influence. Like I know there are readers that have gone back to like card playing decks, like you would play solitaire with or whatever. And you know, the hearts kind of remind you of the cups, and the heart and the emotions and everything like that. So there is definitely overlap. And I would say if I had nothing else on hand and that was the kind of deck I had, I could do a reading with it. You have court cards in there. You know, what you don't have is, you know, that major arcana story necessarily, but you've got, you know, all your numerologies in there. You've got symbolism in there. And yeah, definitely connected. But if I'm remembering correctly, the last time I read about that, I think they were around before, but I could be wrong on that.
I felt like that was, you know, evolved from the tarot. And
Yeah.
I was thinking about this
There
the
you
other
go.
day, and like, I don't know what's, you know, like the whole thing, like, hey, you want to play 52 card pickup? Like, you know, that,
Yeah.
remember that?
Yes. Done
So there's
that.
52 in that deck and 73 in the tarot?
78.
78. Yeah, fuck. I always get that mixed up. I have another thing with 73. I always get, but yeah, so 78. So what's that? Is it just the major arcana that is that gap? Because major arcana is 22 cards, right?
So you've got your 21 in the major arcana, and that's
Once.
part of the 78.
Right. So how did the regular playing deck get reduced to 52? And because
Yeah, that's something that I haven't taken a deep dive into. That's a great question. I should probably take that away for homework. Yeah, like
I
what
guess, you know, they added the queen and actually no, sorry.
there's a Joker. You got the Joker, and then you have your king, queen, right? And yep. So yeah, that's definitely, that would be an interesting little side study. Honestly, one I haven't gone into too deeply, obviously. So I'd have to look
No
into
worries.
that. But it does make me wonder if it was kind of like a real watered down version to appease the masses kind of thing, you know, and use, I mean, it's used for gambling.
That's what I wondered. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And you can go into the history, even like the people that invented Nintendo, they
Yeah,
were super deep into, you know, manufacturing cards for like even like mafioso folks and shit like that. For
yeah,
the gambling and it's
yeah,
crazy history.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Are you ready for a reading, Derek?
Yeah, but
Or you got more questions?
yeah, of course. I always got it's the last one really. Well actually with a simple answer. Stephanie, what do you find as the most important card in the tarot?
Ooh.
It, there might not be one, honestly. But
It's so hard to pick because
right?
of the different reasons. I mean, I know the ones I like to work with the most and the what I gravitate to, but I think it would have to, honestly, if I have to break it down very simply and just say the most important card would be the 0, because this is 0 point energy. This is the Fool. This is where it all begins and where it all has ended and comes back into a new beginning. And this is I love this card because there's innocence in this card, the Fool, but there's also courage. There's courage, and because this individual's getting ready to go off the cliff, and they don't know where they're going to land, right? They don't know what's next, and they've got the little white wolf trying to warn them, their little friend here. Yeah, but it sets everything in motion, right? It's that movement. It's that, you know,
Yeah.
birth into the universe kind of feeling.
What do you think is in the little bag over the shoulder?
Ooh,
This whole
snacks, snacks, maybe
Yeah. Little sustenance.
snacks. Maybe there's a little water, water and snacks in there. Yeah, that would be my guess. There's a lot that they're not bringing with them, right? It's just a tiny little knapsack, so it might just be only what they need. and leaving. It's like everything else is cleared out and they're only taking the basics of what they need with them on their
Yeah.
journey.
Right.
Kind
Yeah.
of stripped of all the extraneous shit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super vulnerable walking into this world trying to start that hero's journey. But all right, so my last question, and concerning possibly your hero's journey and all this stuff, because so I jumped on some live stream recently with a guy that's more like mainstream, isn't really into any kind of esoteric things really, but he brought up something trying to relate to what I was getting at with dropping like hermetic shit, whatever, and like he's like, yeah, I did a tarot reading and this and that, and it was cool, but it's just weird, and he didn't have any kind of foundation to really explain the situation, if you will, and this and that. So for me, he was open and interested, and I applauded him for that. Yet it's just something that, and I was trying to encourage him, like, hey man, like these are life lessons, and like, did she say anything good, anything bad? Was she trying to blow smoke up your ass, or did she actually just like give you an honest reading type of thing? And he's like, yeah, I don't know, man, like it's just like the situation and this and that, and like it's not like he was trying to just like blow it off, but it just seems like folks that aren't taking this seriously or whatever, and maybe it has to do with money, or maybe it has to do with just where they're at consciously or whatever. But what has been your experience with people that get a reading from you and don't seem too appreciative or take anything of value from that, or this and
Mhm.
that, or any kind of negative criticism towards you, that kind of thing as well might have happened? Or people like, hey, man, this is a ripoff. You're telling me this, and I thought it was that, and because people have what expectations.
Yeah.
Anyways, like I'm throwing out too many things into one question for you, but I think you get the gist. But after you,
Yeah. I mean, I would say on the whole, I don't have that problem of someone coming in then not getting anything out of the reading. Now, occasionally that can happen. Occasionally you'll have a person and they'll come for a reading and you have the rapport with them and they're doing their thing and they're like, oh, my dad needs a reading, or, my girlfriend needs this reading or whatever. And then they try to buy that person a reading. Now, those are the people you don't really know if they want the reading, first of all. And, that gets a little tricky. So I don't do like gift cards and stuff like that. And I try to tell people, like, when you work with me as a reader in the way I work, like I really want people stepping forward on their own behalf. So please tell your dad about me if you feel, but let them make the decision, if they want the reading, because, I think what I've experienced the most is just in situations like that, where it's like, I might not really know the person or somebody's gifted them. It's like just crickets. You don't hear, or you don't hear for them for years. And then they'll come back in like 4 or 5 years and be like, you were right on in that reading. I just wasn't ready to look at that. And I just couldn't handle it at the time. I've heard that before too, where it's like, and then but they go through whatever learnings they need to go through and then come back around. Now, as a tarot reader, especially if you're out there in the public, you're going to get comments on your channel. You're going to get all kinds of trolls and things like that, and you just have to have that resilience about you. And you don't, for every bad comment, there's always like 10 amazing ones, or people that have reached out to you personally. And you have to learn how to like just sift through that and let it be what it is. But definitely something that if anyone is considering going into the public scene with tarot, you will get those people that come on. I think they honestly like go seeking, and then they go in and like try to mess with you, and see if they can get a response out of you. And I find that no response is usually best. But I like leaving the comments because I think that person revealed themselves by leaving that comment. So I'm going to let everybody see what you said.
I like that. And real quick, and I did not know that I briefly considered this, but honestly, like I gifted a couple people with and actually promoted, like, hey, it's a really cool idea. Birthday parties coming up, Christmas, whatever. because I have friends that do these types of readings or other things as well, and maybe the other things, aside from tarot, would be better than kind of just, it's not like a blind date in a sense, but I was kind of getting that impression in a
Yeah.
sense of, like, they
Yeah. Well, if they expressed interest, though, that's one thing. Like, oh, my sister's been wanting to do a reading with you. I'm going to gift it for her. That's one thing. I'm talking about, like, we all do it. We have those people in our lives. Like, we're like, oh, damn, if they would just like go on an ayahuasca trip, it might help them out a little. Or, hey, if they would get a tarot, like, damn, that person needs it. Like, we have our preconceived or we're just so excited about how we feel about what we learned and what we're integrating that we want everybody we love to experience that, but they may or may not be ready for such things, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
true.
that answers my question, Leslie. Are you ready for that reading, or you got
I
any
am.
questions? Yeah.
No, I
All
feel
right.
like
I know
I'm
we're
ready.
almost nearing that 2 hour mark and all that stuff, and folks are trying to have a wonderful Sunday on the west and central coast or inland. But
Yeah.
Stephanie,
Awesome.
please take it away.
Well, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
do a little 3-card reading here for us.
Cool, cool.
I'm going to use, this deck is called the Gilded Tarot Royale, and it has really cool pictures and colors. So, and we're going to tune in just to, the greater being of ourselves here and our audience. And we're going to get the highest and best message for us today. Ooh. Wow. All right. This is cool. I love this for this group and this audience. We start off with the Fool, which I just said was like one of my favorite cards in the deck, and Major Arcana energy. So this is the energy of the courage and the risk taking. Okay. So this may be a message more specifically for some people of like, it's time to make the move. It's time to take the leap. It's time to take the jump. Now, the very next card that comes up is the World, which is at the opposite end of the Major Arcana. Now, this to me might say a couple things. When we're looking at the people who are resonating and watching this video, when you take that leap, it may feel like things move pretty quickly for you, okay, into like the next cycle. So you might move quickly through this cycle, quicker than you think that you might, because we're going right from the Fool to the World, which means that this is a major journey. So I also see these two cards coming in so close together like this as a confirmation of the work that we're doing, the great work, and to that this, when we do this and we have this courage to step forward and we question and we are constant seekers of the truth, we have to keep in mind, like, even though you could see the world as an end, this is still a journey and there's new cycles, but we're on the right track. We're on the right track with moving through this. So there's a very evolved feeling to this experience. But I would also say specifically for anyone who's been holding back something, if you're a writer or whatever it is, that whatever your dream is and your position is in all this, this is definitely a card of do it, go, jump. And you don't know how you're going to get from here to here and to complete the cycle. All of the how is not showing up here. So we're going to take the leap regardless of knowing how it's all going to fall into place, right? And we're going to keep going. These are Major Arcana energies. So this may be a theme for the rest of this year for us.
Damn, real quick. So the first two cards, that's the past and present?
Can be. It can be. I didn't set the intention necessarily that way, but you could say,
yeah.
you could say for some people I know, and this has been big in our community too, for those who are aware of it, a lot of people have just closed out big cycles. So you could be dealing with the results of something if you want to look at it from a past and then present perspective, where yes, you are in the process of closing out a cycle, and it can feel a little stuckish sometimes when you're closing out a cycle because you're going through the process of like releasing on one hand and reintegration, integrating something new on the other. So that could also be the case if we look at it from that perspective. So yeah, that's a good way to look at it as well for some of you. Yeah. And remember, cycles come in all forms. So this could be a health cycle, health and wellness. This could be career cycle. Some people could be going it alone now, entrepreneurs all the way, right? Could have been doing things like that. And then our final card is the Queen of Wands. And I love this because this is an action card. We have the wand, so this is fire. This is a queen, but she's bringing forth more of the subtle energies. So this tells me, and we could look at this as like the future card too, that there are things in motion. And I think we're already seeing this that are going to be brought to light. There's more to come. The torch has been lit. And there's more that is going to be revealed here. And it may be in a very subtle way. So I would say with this is, if I was seeing the King of Wands, I would say it's right in our face, very active, very much like boom, but this, keep your eyes open for things. Keep your conversations with people open. Yes, I love how in your card, it's nice. The black cat sits at her feet. So we do have kind of that Kemet, that Egyptian connection going back. In this card, it looks like a different kind of cat. I don't know. It's a strange looking creature at her feet. I'm not sure exactly what they're depicting here. But this is the sense of like a subtle, keep your eyes open, action is happening, things are being revealed kind of energy. For those of us who are working on ourselves actively, this is an invitation to gently put yourselves in the fires of transformation for the area in your life that you want to transform. So if there's something like, let's just say, okay, you've been trying to drink more water, or you're trying to lose weight, or you really want to change your career, you want to be more aligned, you want to write a book. These are more of the like, let yourself go through whatever transformations might be blocking. Let the shadows be illuminated and start moving into that and seeing what's there, seeing what can be revealed within you. Again, more subtle, more maybe a feminine feel to this energy coming through. But this would suggest, possibly that we may be moving into a more active, visible energy as well with something. So that's the invitation there with the Queen of Wands.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I like this.
Wow, yeah. That's awesome.
A lot to think on. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. My experience, which is fairly limited, but I do have a deck and I pull cards and I've been getting more intuitively connected with them. But it's like they seem to pop in very deeply and relevantly to what's going on in my life. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
And we want to welcome, I think you want to welcome that conversation even further, for your podcast and definitely for my channel. I welcome this. Like, I would love to know, for everything I'm tuning into, there could be somebody's energies that I didn't mention. So if you saw the Fool, or you saw the World, or you saw the Queen of Wands, let us know, let us know your thoughts on that and what it might have meant for you. This is, inviting the energy of conversation and collaboration around this only enhances our experience.
Yeah, what I kind of felt with the Fool, and leaping off into this work, it's like the world opens up and it brings you on this ride, like the carousel wheel, of discovery.
And when you get that knowledge and you take that risk and you're getting knowledge along the way, it can be challenging sometimes because you're like, when am I going to pass through this portal and on to the next, and so there is an element of trust here, of that we must trust ourselves in this process, but I do get also the sense we're on the right track. Also, bringing light to situations through the work that we do. So not only things being illuminated to us, but because of the work we're doing, things are being illuminated to others who will have then the opportunity to go deeper into the path of truth and their own inner knowing, right? So there's an invitation that opens up as we move through these energies, which is very beautiful. That's what we want.
Yeah.
We want that
Yeah.
invitation.
It's like
I
she's
like that.
holding the post, just
Mhm.
holding that light for us as we
Yeah.
navigate. And
Yes, beautiful
it's
card.
reassuring in a way,
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Stephanie. It's really
Yeah,
awesome.
that was really cool.
Yeah.
But with
Yeah.
some people might see like, oh, why is he sniffing that daisy, all that stuff, and how come he's not heeding the words to the dog? That's like, hey man, you're about to walk off a cliff. Some people might interpret that as like, this guy's like naive and just like willy nilly. That's just,
Mhm.
but
Yep.
I like the way you said it earlier because I think it really depends on the context and certain things, and even within a certain spread and how that's placed or whatever, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to like having confidence in yourself and like having that leap of faith
Yeah.
and faith in a non-religious fucking way, right?
Yes, yes. And I think it's that when I read, I do have this intention of we're going to elevate through our readings. We're going to evolve. We're going to elevate. And so in this particular Fool card, he doesn't have the knapsack that I can see. He's holding an arc of all of the signs, the symbols of the zodiac signs in a circle there, and looking at that. So to me, I felt it more as like an invitation to take the leap. Sure, you may not know, you don't know, and you don't get to know how everything's going to unfold. You may have a lot of, naivety about it. You may take your first step and be like, whoops, I got to like backtrack. But with the world card coming in, that tells me we're gonna get there, or we've moved. If we've been able to move through the cycles we've moved through so far, we're going to be able to do it again. And so to have that courage. Yeah.
It's like a trust in the universe, a trust in the energies
Yeah.
of the world, in a sense. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Stephanie, tell us more about where people can find your work.
Yeah. So right now I'm definitely on YouTube if you like to look at, free general readings. But my website is creatorsonthecrest.com. On YouTube, I'm at creatorsonthecrest1111. And on all other social media, it's just at Creators on the Crest. So Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok is where I'm most active. I'm also on LinkedIn, but not as, active in there as I am the other places. So
Word. I was about to say, like, yeah, like you're active on a daily basis, at least, like dropping gems
yeah.
over there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
cool.
about. I try. There are a few days that go by, but for the most part, I'm constantly putting those creations forward.
Hey, sometimes you got to take a rest to be the best of creators on the crest. But yeah.
Yes, I love the rhymes.
Yeah, so everybody check out Stephanie's work, and I really appreciate your approach to readings. And checking out your videos, found them very entertaining and fun as well. Yeah, deep, and also have a playfulness that is enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
Derek and
inviting.
Leslie, thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
the two of you, I love what you're doing. I love how you set this up, and I love the engaging questions. It has just been an absolute pleasure. I've got people arriving at my house. You're hearing my dog go nuts, maybe.
Oh, no, okay, yeah.
Good timing. Yes, thank you so much. It was just the right amount of time and wonderful explanations and insights into the tarot.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Take
Bye,
care, Stephanie.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.